The Second World War ended in 1945. The Allied powers, including the United States, the Soviet Union, and other nations, defeated the Axis powers, which included Nazi Germany, Italy, and Japan. The war resulted in significant loss of life, estimated to be around 70 to 85 million people. The Cold War followed World War II, gradually developing over several years. It was characterized by geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, involving competition and confrontation without direct military conflict. The term "cold" signifies the absence of open warfare, but tensions were high. The superpowers engaged in proxy conflicts, espionage, and propaganda battles. Ideologically, the Cold War represented a clash between capitalism, embraced by the US, and communism, championed by the USSR. President Harry Truman led the US during this period, while Joseph Stalin was at the helm of the Soviet Union. The Cold War ended in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union, but its impact continues to shape global politics. Russia suffered over 27 million casualties in World War II. President Joseph Stalin, though not fully trusted by the Allies, the United Kingdom and the United States, allied with them to eliminate the common threat posed by Hitler and Nazi Germany. Stalin aimed to create a buffer zone separating the Soviet Union from the Western powers. Similarly, today, Russian President Vladimir Putin seeks to secure his western borders by attempting to occupy Ukraine, an important strategic location near NATO. During this period, the United States experienced continuous economic and military prosperity. Apart from their economic strength, they possess the most powerful weapon in human history, the nuclear bomb. The US used this devastating weapon on Japan to end World War II. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki resulted in the deaths of more than 200,000 people, with many suffering immediate and long-term effects. President Harry Truman made the decision to drop these bombs and later boasted about the $2 million cost of developing and deploying them. This man hasn't been labeled a war criminal yet, which is baffling. Sometimes, it seems like America and Russia operate similarly, leveraging military might, economic power, and strong media to cover up or even glorify their actions. For example, compare the American invasion of Iraq with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But let's focus on the root of the US-Russia animosity, Joseph Stalin's expansionist ambitions. Stalin's refusal to withdraw communist forces from Iran and his bid for control over the Turkish Straits heightened tensions. These straits were crucial for Russia's access to warm seas amid frozen northern waters. Stalin's support for communist revolutions in Greece also worried the Americans, who saw Soviet actions as a threat to their interest. At that time, global dominance was a contest between superpowers. President Truman's doctrine aimed to contain Soviet expansionism, marking the official start of the Cold War. Since then, the US has opposed Soviet actions worldwide without direct military confrontation. America initiated military and economic aid to Turkey and Greece to counter Soviet influence and stabilize the region. Recognizing the strategic importance of controlling key waterways and straits, such as the Turkish Straits, the US deployed assets like the USS Franklin D. Roosevelt aircraft carrier and provided substantial financial assistance. This aid aimed not only to bolster Turkey's naval capabilities, but also to limit Soviet access to warm seas, thereby containing Soviet expansionist ambitions in the region. This strategy endured for years, driven by the overreaching goal of thwarting Soviet geopolitical maneuvers. As tensions escalated in the aftermath of World War II, the US unveiled the Marshall Plan in April 1948. This ambitious initiative sought to rejuvenate Europe's war-torn economies and counter the allure of Soviet communism. By injecting billions of dollars into European nations, America aimed to foster economic integration, promote the free market, and distance Europe from Soviet socialist influence. The division of Germany epitomized the post-war geopolitical landscape. Following Germany's defeat, the Allies partitioned it into eastern and western zones of occupation. Despite Soviet efforts to impede American aid, West Germany thrived under Allied stewardship, attracting East German migrants seeking better prospects. Stalin's failed blockade precipitated the reunification of Western zones into West Germany, prompting the Soviets to establish East Germany. Stalin's response to growing discontent in East Germany was the construction of the Berlin Wall, a physical barrier intended to stem the tide of defections to the West. Despite being touted by the Soviets as a bulwark against Western imperialism, the wall was condemned by the West as a symbol of oppression, earning the moniker Wall of Shame. Nonetheless, the Berlin Wall failed to deter the exodus of East Germans to the prosperous West, illustrating the success of America's policies in attracting individuals disillusioned with Soviet communism. The saga of the Berlin Wall underscores the broader narrative of the Cold War, characterized by ideological rivalry, geopolitical maneuvering, and the struggle for hearts and minds on both sides of the Iron Curtain. Delving into another pivotal moment of the Cold War, we explore the events surrounding the Cuban Revolution of 1959, led by Fidel Castro. Despite Cuba's small size, its proximity to America posed a significant strategic concern, especially when aligned with Soviet interests. Castro's revolution aimed to liberate Cuba from economic dependence on the United States, signaling a shift towards communist ideology. Sensing an opportunity to challenge American dominance, the Soviet Union supplied Cuba with nuclear missiles, escalating tensions dramatically. President John F. Kennedy responded swiftly, launching the Bay of Pigs invasion to neutralize Castro's regime and prevent the installation of nuclear warheads. However, the invasion failed, prompting Khrushchev to deploy nuclear submarines to Cuba, sparking a tense standoff. Meanwhile, the Afghan War and the Vietnam War, both proxy conflicts between the superpowers, raged on, further intensifying global tensions. As American naval forces blockaded Cuba, the world teetered on the brink of nuclear war. The situation reached a critical point when a Soviet submarine commander contemplated launching nuclear missiles in response to perceived threats from American ships. Thankfully, one officer, Vasily Arkhipov, dissented, averting a catastrophic escalation. Following intense negotiations, Kennedy and Khrushchev reached a compromise. The Soviet Union agreed to withdraw its missiles from Cuba, while America pledged not to invade the island. This agreement, known as the Cuban Missile Crisis, remains one of the closest brushes with nuclear conflict in history. Despite the de-escalation, tensions persisted between the superpowers, fueling conflicts across various fronts. However, internal dissent within the Soviet Union eventually led to its collapse, marking the end of the Cold War era. In 1991, it finally came to an end, and with its dismantling, the Cold War concluded. Although not fought directly, it reshaped the world through numerous conflicts and events, leaving a lasting impact. Vladimir Putin's actions, including the invasion of Ukraine and support for military coups in Africa, have reignited tensions reminiscent of the Cold War era.